and welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Many authors find self-promotion to be a challenging and often daunting aspect of their creative journey. The process of putting one's work out into the world can trigger this roller coaster of emotions and even doubts. There's often a fear of judgment and rejection as authors open themselves up to critiques and reviews from an often unpredictable audience. The vulnerability of sharing your creations can lead to these feelings of self-doubt and insecurity, where making authors question the value of their work and whether it's worth promoting at all. Some authors may even grapple with imposter syndrome, doubting their own expertise or the legitimacy of their voice in their chosen genre. This self-doubt can hinder your ability to confidently promote your work. Moreover, the sheer volume of self-promotion options in today's digital age can be very overwhelming, causing you to question whether or not it's worth it to invest your time and energy effectively. So, balancing the desire to share their creative passion with the emotional challenges of self promotion is a journey many authors navigate, and it often requires a shift in mindset, learning to embrace the process and finding joy in connecting with an audience that appreciates their unique voice and perspective. With an impressive 41 children's books under her belt, Bracha Goetz is on a mission to not only nurture the spiritual and emotional growth of children, but as we'll learn in this episode, she has insights and practical tips for authors to help them embrace the joy of self-promotion, avoiding burnout, and inspiring others along the way. So, Bracha, welcome to the show.
Beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
No, thank
Wonderful.
you for being here. No, I'm really excited to have this conversation because a lot of times it's true. Like self-promotion feels so ingenuine and sometimes it comes across as salesy, and that's something that we're going to talk about. But first, let's talk about your work. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself the author of 41 children's books, which doesn't even count the other books that you've written and published.
Well, right. It's 41 books. I say they all help children's souls to shine. That's
Mm.
what they all have in common. Basically, I write the books that I wanted to have as a child. Um, Books that explain to really young children deep concepts in life, deep and important concepts in a way that's joyful and clear so they can readily absorb them and they don't have to play catch up later on in life like I did. So they can learn these things early on in life.
So, what was the inspiration for your very first book? How did that even start?
Oh my. I was I was living in Israel. I was living in the Judean hills in a caravan, and my little children were playing outside. I I finally had time. So I brought a notebook with me while they were busy playing, and I wrote this story that was in my head for a while. I put it in an envelope. I did not even type it up. It was written on the notebook paper, stuffed in an envelope, mailed to America. And 6 weeks later, I got back. I sent it to publishers in America. 6 weeks later, I got back an answer that my book was accepted. I was like, wow, this is how you write a children's book. I could do it. I was so excited. So that was how it began.
Oh my goodness. And that has to be very different from writing a book for adults, right? Because your children's your books, they tackle some pretty heavy topics, but you still have to simplify that. So how do you approach simplifying the really deep concepts for young readers while, holding on to that subject matter?
Exactly. I graduated from Harvard. People expect Harvard, I'm going to write these intellectual treatises. So I like to simplify. I like to understand things and then get it down to its core and be able to explain that to people. That's what I love to do. So that's what comes naturally to me. And I have my spirit is like a childlike one. Like I've maintained this love of learning and curiosity and a sense of wonder about the world. And that comes through, that voice comes through in my books. I would say that for some reason I identify as a 6-year-old boy, So in my books, that's who I am. I'm that voice. I don't know. So it's just a lot of the main characters are a little boy discovering things about the world. Yeah.
That's so sweet. I love that because you are clearly like you are just a genuine person. Like I can just tell, and you are just like you have the sweetest spirit about you, even through the screen.
Oh,
So,
oh,
and I have not read any of your books yet, but I would. I mean, like I could see myself really falling into them if it's the same
oh.
kind of just theme and just spirit about the book. So, tell us about one of the books, maybe even your first one. What was the issue and how was that handled in the book?
What I want to tell you is that I cover even topics, difficult topics, like about the prevention of abuse. And
Oh,
amazing is that these books about the prevention of abuse have actually been the most popular books of all my books.
really?
They're in over 150,000 homes, and children will come up to me and tell me they're their favorite books. This is not what I expected. I was writing this book to be helpful, but I didn't expect that children would find this to be their favorite books. But what I found is that children love guidelines. It makes them feel safer in the world to know how to be, how to interact in this world, because otherwise it feels scary. It feels uncontrollable. It gives them back a sense of control for children to have guidelines. So there are those books. There are books also I explain about disabilities. For instance, one of my grandchildren was born with severe disabilities. And when this happened, people said to me, "Oh, now you're going to write about disability." So I'm like, I would love to, but I don't feel like I'm an expert on this subject. But very soon my eyes were opened, and I read an article written by a woman named Yael Zellinger, and she wrote about the workshops that she was giving in schools to teach children about disabilities. So I called her up and I said, "I want to write a picture book based on your workshops." And she was thrilled. So that's what the book is. It's called Let's Appreciate Everyone. It explains to children, what does it feel like to be disabled? Um, it talks about visible disabilities and invisible disabilities. It teaches children the guidelines of how to interact that they might never have known. So, for instance, children will naturally stare when they see someone with a visible disability. And there's another word that also 5-letter word that starts with S, just like stare, and that word is smile. If you add your smile to the stare, it creates a connection. And and just a simple thing like that can change it, because children with disabilities are usually the loneliest children. They don't get invited to as many play dates or parties, and children don't know how to interact. So once you learn basic guidelines, you feel much more comfortable once someone has explained these things to you. So I have books also about eating healthy. Again, why? Like one I wrote during the pandemic because parents were asking me, "My children are just eating junk, going to bed late, and not exercising. Can you explain to them why it's so important?" So that's called Let's Stay Healthy. I'll hold it up here. Let's Stay Healthy. So children, see, my background was in public health because, like, as an undergraduate, I was pre-med, and then I went to medical school. And even as an undergraduate, I took courses at Harvard's School of Public Health. So I love public health, and I feel that part of letting your soul be able to fully shine is having a healthy body. So that's why protection from abuse, eating healthy, disabilities, all of these things come under the same umbrella of helping children to let their souls shine as fully as possible. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And that, like, there are so many things that I was sitting there, I was like, okay, let's talk about this, let's talk about this. And so we might be here like all day long. No, but starting back to where you began was talking about how children thrive with boundaries and guidelines. Like we so often think, okay, you're a person, you automatically understand this world, and it's like, I don't understand this world. I need boundaries and guidelines. Why do we expect our children to just automatically know these things? Because we forget.
Exactly.
And so, yes, absolutely. I think parents should take those resources and put them into action to understand, because and some of us, I was raised with pretty strict boundaries and guidelines, and I think there's a good balance between, strict and too loose of a boundary. And so I think that parents need to find that happy medium and know how to set boundaries, because we may not have been given the best healthy boundaries either when we were children. So, using those tools together, and even saying, I'm going to read this book to you while I also learn how to set boundaries for you.
To do it in a joyful way is essential, because it takes 400 repetitions to form new synapses in the brain to create a new habit. But if done joyfully, 10 to 20 repetitions and you've got it down. And children will reread children's books again and again. It's just the best way to get important, beautiful concepts into children.
That
Yes.
is amazing. That, I know how, I didn't know the exact number, but like there, it is repetition that drives, that digs those little trenches in the brain that says this is how this works.
Yes.
But you're right, like connecting it with, especially if you think about how we connect happy memories with, we can remember those memories a lot faster, but also the negative ones, right? Because there's an
Oh,
emotional
yeah.
bond to those memories. We pull them up faster. And so if you
Yes.
create a positive memory and connection to whatever topic it is, then yes, absolutely, they will remember them a lot longer too, not just faster, but a lot longer. Those will stick with
Exactly.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. It really makes an impact. It puts an imprint on the soul. And it's just awesome to be able to teach children happiness skills from the beginning of life. Then they have those skills throughout the rest of their lives to lead a much more effective and joyful life. Right?
Yeah, I think that's something that's missing a lot. And just if you look around at adults today, what's missing? Joy.
Yes.
They're letting just the world suck the joy from them. They're not happy at their job, they're not happy in their relationships. They're,
Yes.
because they're not finding the way to replace the joy that they're giving, right? Like we're constantly pouring, especially as moms, we're constantly pouring into others, and then we forget that we need to be refilled. And so whether that's, reading a kid's book with your kids and learning with them, or finding joy in something, you have to fill yourself with joy. Otherwise, you will be pretty sad and miserable the rest of your life.
Exactly. And all my books, some more overtly than others, teach gratitude principles, because that is the secret to joy.
Yes.
When we fill up on gratitude, and that's the one book that I wrote for adults is my memoir. It's actually my journey to gratitude, and all the suffering that went before that in my search for for meaning in life. And when I finally understood that that's our purpose for being here, to enjoy this world in deep gratitude, to nourish our hungry souls, because that's what they're really hungry for. We are genuinely hungry for gratitude, and that's what brings lasting joy.
Definitely. And it's really funny because I was literally having a conversation on Sunday with a group of teenage girls. We were talking about the difference that having, we called it our attitude of gratitude, like how different your whole perspective shifts when you
Yes,
do focus on being thankful for even the hard times. And not to sound like a fortune
yes,
cookie, right? It's truth. It's like the more grateful you are for what you are aware of having, for, not to compare yourself and say, well, at least I don't have that, but to
right.
say, I have this. I am given the opportunity and the privilege to wake up in the morning and to do this, to that gratitude changes everything. And if we can
Yes,
stick that in our children at a young age,
yes.
we're so blessed that she's now 14, but from like age, I don't know, 2, it was very clear that our daughter is just naturally grateful, which is so funny because
Wow, wow.
I'm not natural, which is, it's something that I have had to learn, is how to be grateful. And that's just me being 100% transparent here, but she
Yes.
would just, I mean, you could hand her a banana and she would be that kid that'd be like, thank you, because you thought of her, because you did something for, I
Oh,
know. And so my goal is to always be like her because she still has that about her. One of my favorite stories was for her birthday one year. My parents gave her a pair of white tennis shoes, and she opens up the shoebox and she pulls out a shoe and she went, a shoe. And she was so excited about this shoe. And they said, but here, take the box. There's more. And she picked it up and she went, another.
oh,
Like
oh
she
gosh, that
was
is the most adorable. That is
right, like
so
it
adorable.
was the sweetest thing, but that's her, like just her natural spirit. And so I'm like,
Oh
I
my
need to learn
gosh.
from her,
I
what
love
there was.
it. I
It's my
love
favorite
it.
story.
That is a fantastic story. I love it. That is great. Oh
It's
my
so funny.
gosh.
So yeah, but I agree with you, like teaching children gratitude in ways that they understand it, right? Not just saying thank you because you're forced to say thank you, but to really, it's an attitude, not just words that you say.
And and you don't lose anything by it. You
That's right.
only gain joy.
That's
There's
right.
nothing to lose. It's amazing. And yet we don't all know that. We're not like that's one of the basic rules of life, and we're not taught that. But thank God your daughter was born with that gift to shine in the world. Beautiful.
It is. And it's so, and I'm so careful to, I want to remind her, make sure that to express your gratitude all the time, as much as possible. But I also want to kind of keep her in a bubble and be like, don't ever lose that, like make sure it stays.
Yes.
Don't let the world jade you, because the world
Yes.
can be, a very loud place and a very busy place. And it's very
Yes.
easy to lose sight of. Let's just be thankful for today and what we
Yes.
have today.
Yes. This moment. Exactly.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Woo! I got chills and I got tears from like we're sitting
Oh,
here like trying not to. Woo,
oh,
that's good stuff. This is like my favorite interview I've ever had, and we're only a few
oh,
minutes in. So
oh.
anyway, okay. So let's go back to talking about your books, and let's talk about from the author side of things. So have you traditionally published all of your books? Are they all with a publisher, or have you had experience in self-publishing as well?
Okay, so the first 39 books were all with traditional publishers, and the 40th children's book was published by my children. What happened is they decided, you know, really the publishers make most of the money. We'll do it as a business. You're like an established author, so we're going to become a publisher now. And so my daughter-in-law, and they both had jobs. She was a preschool teacher and he's a first grade teacher. And they decided that on the side they would open the business and learn about publishing. So they began with my 40th children's book, and they have been continuing to. What also they're doing is taking back some of my books from the other publishers and republishing them themselves. So there's a number of books now, a bunch of new books in process, and other older books that they've republished. So they're really busy doing this and they are loving it. My daughter-in-law now gave up her job and she's doing this full time. Like she we love working together, and it's a real creative, awesome process. Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's rare to have that kind of relationship where you can both be family and work together. Like that is a very little balance there you got to find.
It's beautiful. And they have different roles in the business, you know. She's very creative. She was a super creative preschool teacher. So she helps me direct to the child's mind. And she also is really good with artwork and graphics. And she's doing animation with my books too. She's adding that and audiobooks. And and my son, he's such a people person. So he does like pop-up sales at stores. He just like shows up and does these sales and people, they adore him. He's like a riot and he does really fun things. So the two of them together are having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. No, that's fantastic. So have you found that, taking it back from the traditional publisher, now I'm self-published and that's all I've ever done. So I don't know how exactly it works with the traditional publisher, but I know that as a self-published author that, you're responsible for every aspect of the business, including promoting your work, which can get exhausting on top of trying to stay creative, on top of trying to do the taxes and all all those things or whatever. It can even become repetitive. And like I said earlier, feel salesy. So how is that working for you, having switched from traditional to a more self-involved situation?
Right. I'm so not a financial person, so I don't deal with any of that. They deal with that. That's their thing. But I'm doing what I've always done. And I told them I'm just going to keep doing what I love to do because I never feel like I'm wasting 1 minute in promotion because I only do what I love. And that's what I encourage people. You'll never waste any time. Even if you don't sell books, if you're having a blast, letting people know, I call it sharing and revealing what's in your books. I don't call it PR promotion. That sounds salesy. I said, you're just sharing. You're sharing the treasures in your books. That's what I love to do. I could do this all day long. So I, what do I love to do? I love giving podcasts because I am an introvert. And here I am just talking one-on-one with you about the most meaningful stuff. Like I can't do small talk. So right away, we just get right into the deepest stuff. And that's what I love. So I love doing podcasts. And I also, even though I'm an introvert, I love giving presentations because once again, I'm talking about in person or online because again, I'm sharing the deepest stuff from my soul into another soul. So that totally helping other souls to shine is what makes my soul shine. So I love doing it. And those are my favorite things to do. And my children do the parts that I don't like. They arrange for the presentations in different communities. They do all the scheduling, they get the flights, airlines, they deal with all the stuff I have no interest in doing. And so we fly around together. We have a great time doing book tours and giving presentations for organizations and congregations and in schools. So those are the ways that I most enjoy promoting books. But my daughter-in-law, she doesn't mind like setting up tables at events and selling books. She kind of likes being out there in person and she enjoys that aspect. So we all do different things that we enjoy the most. And
So
and I was always doing those things even when the books were published by traditional publishers. I was doing this as well because traditional publishers in general, they don't have the time to spend promoting every book. So if you want your own book to be out there, if you believe in it and you want other people to learn about it, you got to do that yourself. Publishing a book is step one. Then you have the rest of your life to share about it as much as you want.
And what I'm kind of gathering from, maybe I'm wrong, but I think what I'm hearing is if you have a story that you think is worth putting on the page in the first place, then you are going to want to, and you need to talk about your story in some form or fashion. Like you're writing it because you think you're going to connect with somebody or some audience somewhere. So why wouldn't you talk about it?
Exactly. Many people think once my book is published, that's it. I've done it. Now, who is going to know about it? A few people, your friends, your family, but not the world at large. How will people find out about it? So you just have a great time letting people know in the way that you love. There's an infinite number of ways to do it. And you could get completely drained, completely burnt out if you try to do every single thing. You can't anyway. So do what you love the most. Try out different things and you'll see what you really enjoy doing, what you could spend forever doing, and you'll know that it gives you energy when you do it. You don't feel drained from it.
And that's what I was going to say is that the methods that I use that take the most time, that take the most concentration, that take me out of the creativity, those are the ones that drain me. It's the ones where I get to pour my creativity into it, where there's part of me in it. Those are the ones where I don't end up burnt out. I end up more
Right,
energized, like you said. So yeah, you
right,
find what works for you. Now, you may have to go down several trails to find it. You may have to
right,
try them all once, but
right.
at the same time, you're trying something new, so you're going to learn a new skill. That's great. And also, it might connect with one person that you weren't going to connect with in a different way either. So you may as well try them.
Exactly. I have stood at a table selling my books. I do not enjoy it one bit, but I've done it. And I know now that, and I don't mind signing my books. People come up to me, so they put me at a different station. They're selling the books, and I sit on the side and I talk to individuals that come up and want their book signed. That I totally love. Yeah.
I'm the same way. We are the same person because I too am an introvert, and like this is my way of communicating. Or you can put me on a stage in front of 100 people, and I'm
Yes.
fine. But it's
Yes.
that awkward little, when they come to the table and say, "Hey, will you sign my book?" I'm like, "Sure, but please don't talk to me."
Ah,
Let's not have those conversations.
I don't know how to do small talk either. Right. Exactly.
It's
Yes.
so hard. But at the same time, those are the moments when somebody will tell you, you will hear,
Yes.
I really connected with this because, and they want
Yes.
to tell you these things. And so you have to be willing to break through that awkwardness sometimes and be like, okay, we can have this conversation.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Jennifer. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, how do you maintain a sense of authenticity when you're doing this, though? Because you don't want to come across as, because sometimes if I am at a table with my stuff or I'm, something to that effect, it's like, I'm doing this to sell you something. And that's
I
not what I'm
know.
there for.
I
So how do you keep it
know.
authentic? How do you keep it, and
It's
enthusiastic?
it's so hard for me. That is very hard. I don't even like handling money when people give it to me for my books. I feel awkward. And other people don't mind at all. That's what I see. My daughter-in-law is totally fine about it. She's got this little machine. People put their credit cards in. I'm like, keep me away from that. Yeah. You just have to know yourself and what you could do. I I would say focus on the message, because the more laser focused you are on your message, then I don't have to say, buy this book. I'm selling the message. That's what I'm selling. And I even tell people, you don't have to buy the books. You could get your public library to order them. What's important to me, because I'm such an idealist, is that the messages get out in the world as much as possible. So I don't care if it's from the public library, however it gets there. And many people, they have enough books in their home. They don't need any more books. Just get the book from the library and share it. So, yeah.
I get that, and I think that a lot of times we need to remember that people they are looking for the message, or they're looking for the escape in the sense of, a fiction novel, or, they're looking
Yes.
for something, and you've provided that something. So be the person that has provided that for them.
Yes.
And when they come up to you and when they're like, hey, I'd like to buy your book, embrace the fact that somebody wants what you have to offer,
Yes.
because I'm the same
Yes.
way. Like I had a bakery for a few years and I loved it and it was great, but I hated charging people. I know, right? Like it's a
Yes.
business, it costs me money to run. And my husband
Yes.
was like, you've probably made $1 if you don't charge more, or, and I'm
Yes.
going, okay, so he's the money guy. We let him deal with the money and he tells you what to do. And I'm like,
Exactly.
somebody else can take
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. We got to team up with people with different traits, different gifts. Exactly. Because we all have unique things to give to the world. We can't do everything. Yes.
You shouldn't try to do everything. You do what
Yes.
you were gifted to do, and you work with
Yes.
that and let somebody else use their gifts to help you,
Yes.
and you help them. And so,
Beautiful.
which takes me back to something you said earlier. You collaborated with somebody on one of your books, about the disabilities, and you went to somebody who was a resource who could provide more knowledge.
Yes.
Have you collaborated with other experts in the fields when you've written things, or
Yeah, every time. Well, see, for the books about abuse, I was coordinating a big brother, big sister program for almost 20 years. So I became such an expert on screening out um, molesters, people that
Mhm.
wanted to become a volunteer for the worst reasons, So I went to many classes about it. I read so much literature about it that I felt ready to write a book about it that I could do in a calm and joyful way that children could readily absorb. So yeah, that was all. Again, I don't start writing a book until I feel it's going to explode from me, unless I start it now, because I research, and then I feel ready. Like one of my books is Let's Swim Safely. Again, a parent came to me. They said they saw such horrible things with toddlers not being attended to well. So this is a book, it's a board book because it's for toddlers. That has the highest rate of drownings of that age group. So it's so sad. And I learned a lot researching it. And then as soon as I researched it, I was ready to write the book. It's a very basic book, but it's saving lives. It's so important. And the little children that read it, they memorize it. They've got the rules down. It's unbelievable. So they know not to run near a pool because they could slip right in. They know, and the parents has notes to the parents, don't be more than an arm's length away ever from a child in the water, a toddler in the water. You got to be right up. I learned things I did not know. I didn't even know that drowning was silent. This was a new thing
Mm.
for me to learn this, such an important thing. You're not going to hear cries of help because the child is under the water. It's a lot of important information. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's even better, that your books are not just, they're not just stories to teach, but they come backed with information, with the research,
Yes.
with the professional knowledge of,
Yes.
this is an important message, so pay attention.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
It's saving lives in every way because I myself, I was physically healthy, but I was lacking spiritually. And so I also want to nourish the soul and the body, both. So everything can fully shine in a person. Yeah.
I agree. And I too am, so, mental health professional, that is my background. And
Wow.
holistic approach is the way to go, because physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, all
Yes.
connected. We are one person, and all of those parts make up a person. And so if one is out
Yes.
of balance, everything's out of balance. And so if we can
Yes.
ingrain that in our children, hey, I'm feeling this way physically, let's look at these other parts of my life as well, and
Yes.
help parents to do that as well, then we would have a lot fewer, I'd have a lot fewer clients, saying, hey, I need to talk to somebody.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning. I do a part of the show that's called Flip the Script, which is where you get to take the reins and you get to take over the show, and you pick the topic, you pick the questions, whatever you want to talk about, it's all yours. So you
Okay.
go with it.
Okay, I want to ask you what you've written. Yeah, I'm very curious.
Okay, so my first two books are Christian romantic suspense novels, and so they,
Wow.
with a little psychology and government conspiracy background. So those are my first two, and my third book, which comes out in February, is just a love story about a girl and a boy who are best friends in childhood, and they grow up, they grow apart, and will they, won't they? We'll find out.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, I'm so excited to find out. That's great.
I
That's
love a good childhood sweetheart story because that's a
oh.
familiar story. So that I decided I was going to write that one.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you, is that your story? No.
Sort of. I met my husband when we were 13, and he picked me out that day, and I gave him the friend zone for a long time.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling it related to your own life, you know? That is
Yeah, you
beautiful.
write what you know, right?
Yes, yes, very exciting. That is beautiful. And so, okay, and so can I ask you, like, you work as a mental health professional too? Is that
I did. I was a marriage and family counselor for a good long time, and I kind of, it kind of waned for a little while. I kind of focused on, because we homeschool and life, and so that kind of, I waned. I kept several virtual clients for a little while that we talked to every, and then they kind of fell to the wayside. They were like, I think I'm good, and I'm like, I don't, but if that's your choice, I can't make you stay, and so
wow. I
yeah.
I I love I love the combination that you were like a marriage counselor and you write romantic novels. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. That
Yeah,
is so awesome.
people are fascinating. If you watch them long enough and you studied them long enough and you study human behavior long enough, people can be very fascinating. And so I do like to pride myself on being able to write a good relationship. And I've seen some doozies that are not so good. So
Yes. So now I'm going to ask you, I have my own ideas, but what do you say is the secret to a happy marriage?
oh, open communication and laughter. Like
Oh,
if you can't laugh with one another, if everything is always serious, you won't go far.
amazing. I love it.
What's
So
yours?
great. What?
What's your idea on it? What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, I was going to say respect. I
Mm.
think that respect is something so key. And, but for sure, the joy is so important. But I feel like the bottom line is respect. Respecting each other is really important.
I
Yeah,
agree. And it's really funny because, for me, respect is just kind of an understood. It's actually one of my
right,
biggest pet peeves, like disrespect, even from
right,
children towards other children or towards adults,
right.
like disrespect, I do not tolerate. And I think if you maintain an open line of communication where you're not afraid to speak to one another in a respectful way, I guess that should be also clarified, that respectful open communication and not just and two-way communication. So yeah, I think
Yes. And
respect is a big one.
how do you help people that did not grow up in a loving home? I mean, that didn't have a good marriage as role models. How do you help them learn the skills of how to be a good partner?
That is tricky, because especially if you were always, kind of told you're better seen and not heard, that opening up and communicating, that is nearly impossible to want to do, because you're scared of the judgment, you're scared of,
Right.
but I think there has to be a trust and you can tell when when I meet a couple, when I meet one person from a couple, I can tell whether or not, one, they trust, and two, they can be trusted. And so you have to work on building trust before you can even begin building on communication. And so when you're talking about trust, you're talking about following through with promises or plans or expectations, but also having realistic expectations. And so you walk through all of these things, and like trust is like the main building block when it comes to a relationship, and building that. If that's not
Right.
there, it's just going to crumble, right? That's the foundation, and you have to have it.
And have you been able to help people build trust that didn't have it like from their childhood?
I would say that there have been a couple that have been at that point where you see, and unfortunately, like one of the marriages did not last, and that happens too, because a lot of times it's expectations that aren't being met because we have such high expectations for someone else, but we never actually tell them what those expectations are, right? And so we're just living in this world of, I expect you to read my mind. I expect you to do what I think you should do without me having to tell you or ask. And so,
Yes.
yes, we have had some success with learning to manage expectations. And just like anything, you have your fallbacks, right? Where you're like, oh, I
Yes.
slipped back into that behavior.
Yes.
But they can be worked through when you're aware of them. And so, yeah.
Beautiful. So awareness is such an important thing that you work on. And that
Yes.
changes things because that's so major. Mm, a widespread lack of awareness is one of the main problems. So that's it. And that's why the earlier we can help people, the better, right? Especially as children, giving
For
them
sure.
a sense of awareness about who they really are, and can you trust the world? What I suffered from in those intervening years was eating disordered behavior, and that it comes from a basic lack of trust. I didn't trust the world, and I didn't trust myself. It has a lot to do with control. I felt the world was out of control, and it's a way to gain back control. So that was my journey. And my journey was like, I wasn't brought up a person, I was brought up with a faith, but I wasn't brought up to really trust that there was a God in the world, or that I was a soul, that I was a spiritual being. So I wasn't aware that it was essential to nourish my soul.
Mm,
And once I certainly wasn't aware that it was essential to nourish my soul because I didn't even know I was a soul. I didn't really know that I was a spiritual being at my core. It was learning all that changed my life. And that's why I'll show this. In my
mhm.
memoir, Nourish the Soul, it's called Filling the Emptiness Within. That's what happened. With addictions, you feel a hunger, an intense hunger, and you try to fill it with externalities desperately. And the hole just gets bigger and bigger because it's not a physical hole, it's a
Yeah.
spiritual hole. So that awareness, the recognition that it was a spiritual hole that needed to be filled, changed everything. And then I began to trust the world and trust myself. And I didn't understand why the addictions abated until what did one thing have to do with the other? And then in the book, it's basically like a psychological mystery because it gets solved at the end when I understand. I was able to finally fill my hungry soul. So that's why I no longer needed the addictions.
That is exactly right. And unfortunately, we see addictions, people with addictions, we look at them from the outside and we think, oh, well, they have no control over themselves. And the fact of the matter is that their addiction is because they feel like they have no control over anything, and they pull it.
Exactly.
And that's true for any addiction, whether you're talking, a sexual addiction, a physical addiction, or whatever that case may be. Those addictions are there because there's a lack of a sense of control. And so I just
Exactly.
I love that you have taken your story and your experience and you said, I have something that I can share so that hopefully someone in the future won't have to experience the same thing I did. And I think we're all given a story to share like that. I think we're
Yes.
all given something that we are meant to use to make the world a better place. And I'm so thankful
Yes.
that you have chosen to do that, because what a story to
Yes.
share.
Yeah, exactly right. So the people that have addictions are sometimes the most sensitive people around, because their soul is like exposed. Other people can just go through life and it's okay. I don't have to worry about the purpose of life or why I'm here. They don't even care. But those that are more sensitive, it bothers them, and they really can't go on that way. And that's why they have this hunger. That I find that people that develop addictions in general are more sensitive people that genuinely feel the need to fill their souls, but they may not have that awareness of what exactly is causing that inner pain. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think if we can teach children how to have awareness, because that's not something that you can't put a name to it as a child. You can't put a
Right.
name to, I need to be self-aware and I need to be aware of the world
Yes.
around me. How do we teach
Yes.
children that? And so I'm glad that there is somebody out there writing the books that will help children have that awareness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're unusual books. Yeah, they're like deep spiritual books for young children. Yeah.
I think that is a needed thing. And all right, so how can listeners connect with you and your work? What's your website? And if you're on social media, share that with us so that we can connect with you and your work.
Sure. The the website, of course, was created by my children, mainly my daughter-in-law, and it's www.getzbookshop.com. Getz is spelled that funny way, Goetz, and she has worked so hard on it, so I hope you'll visit. She'll love it. Oh, and everybody, you can download a free chart of the pleasure ladder, which I didn't talk about, but it's the 5 levels of pleasure in life. And the 5 levels of pleasure, they correspond to our 5 fingers, because we have the ability to bring pleasure into our lives at any moment. And they also correspond to the 5 levels of the soul. So you can learn about that. You can download it. You could put it on your fridge or your cupboard. If, let's say, a person has an overeating problem, they'll know from looking at it, because generally people overeat from a sense of scarcity. There's not enough pleasure, so I got to keep but stuffing my face. But when you see this chart, it shows you there's an abundance of ways that you could bring pleasure into your life at any moment. So you can get unstuck from that one addictive place where a person might get stuck, and it frees you to bring all kinds of pleasure into your life. And the interesting thing about the pleasure ladder is that the price you pay to climb each rung on the ladder is gratitude. It's gratitude that really fills us up.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's exciting. No, that's great. And all of that is going to be in the show notes. So all they have to do is go click on a link and it'll take them over to your website. Are your books on Amazon? Where can we find your books?
Yeah, they're on Amazon, they're on the website, and they're in bookstores and in libraries. You could order them too. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Okay, I have a really big question. This is the really big question at the end of every show that I ask. And it can be related to anything we've talked to, or it can be just something that pops into your head that's on your heart. So, what is one piece of advice or encouragement that if listeners walk away with nothing else, what would you want them to hear?
Okay. I'm going to say even one small action like planting a tiny seed, it can become a tree. It can bring fruit forever. So just do one tiny thing, be grateful for one tiny thing, write down the words of a book that you always wanted to write down. You've been carrying this around, spend a few minutes doing it. Just do something that you enjoy, plant a little seed, do something new and different that makes you feel more alive, that lets your soul shine. And that little thing can bring fruit forever in your life.
That's perfect. There's nothing I can add to that. That's absolutely the best thing that you could have possibly said. So, Bracha, thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation. I think if nobody else got anything I did, like I'm walking away from this going, my life has now been changed. So, thank you so much.
Oh, Jennifer, such a joy to be with you. You can't imagine. You are such a wonderful person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I hope
you.
that you have a fantastic rest of your evening.